She doesn't belong here. Get out! Where's the security? Kick her out now!
Glass and wood lobby. A receptionist jabs a finger, security shifts to block. Unauthorized at the front desk. On-screen caption hits, "Get lost." Badge on the counter confiscated. Monitor label misspelled name. Guests only flag. Phones lift. Our black CEO doesn't argue. She opens notes. Log everything. One tap ops legal beat. Voice. Calm. Do you want proof on system? Timestamp appears. Null gone tin. 10 minutes from now. Paychecks frozen. Access dark. Receipts public. Stay with me. Watch a weaponized policy collapse under its own logs. The lobby looks like a product brochure for perfection. Glass and warm wood closing out the street noise. Behind the desk, a receptionist leans forward, voice firm enough to carry to the elevators. You are not cleared. Get lost. The words land harder because security has already shifted their stance, one to the left of the podium, one to the right, creating a neat triangle that blocks the path. A thin plastic badge sits on the counter under the receptionist's palm. It is still warm from a wrist it no longer belongs to. The intercom crackles over the ceiling. Unauthorized individual at the front desk. Please stand by. Guests stop mid-stride. A bellhop hesitates with a luggage cart. Phones rise almost in unison, that small crowd instinct Americans have when policy meets spectacle. Every lens captures the same frame. A desk, two guards, a finger pointed down hall, and a black CEO who does not move. She does not trade volume for volume, no speech, no defense. She slides her phone to camera, taps record, and gives the scene a name. Lobby check-in, 7:02 p.m. Beneath the file name, a note reads, "Log everything." The device reflects a screen on the back wall. The company's CRM shows her last name misspelled and a red tag that says "Guests Only." In a corner, a second tag blinks "Risk Review Pending," as if a database has learned bias as a language. The receptionist pushes the badge aside like a coaster. Policy is policy, ma'am. You can wait off to the side. She points to a blank space near a ficus and nods to the guard. The guard mirrors the nod as if the nod itself is paperwork. The second guard's radio lights up, but the earpiece stays quiet. Something in the rhythm says they have done this before. Block, label, calm, smile, escalate if needed. One call, the CEO thinks, and taps a starred contact. The label says, "Ops Legal." It picks up on the first ring. She does not step away. She lets the call play in plain sight. "This is the front desk," she says evenly. "My temporary badge was confiscated. The system shows guests only on my profile. I am asking for proof of the system and a supervisor at the desk." On the counter, the badge glints like a receipt. A courier steps around the crowd and pauses. The bellhop puts the cart into neutral and sets the brake. The elevator chime dings once, then again, as if counting the seconds. On her phone, a recording timer rolls to 9 seconds, then 10, then 11. She adds a quiet line to the mic. Timestamp 0011. Intercom used to announce unauthorized people. Guests filming. Badge in possession of contractor. No incident report generated. The receptionist hears the words not as accusation, but as precision. A crease appears at the corner of her mouth. She cannot quite decide whether to double down or call for help. The intercom button sits under her palm like a panic charm. She presses it again. "Security, to the lobby. Confirm." Ops Legal stays on the line. "Do you need me on site?" the voice asks. The CEO keeps her eyes on the desk. "I need your tablet and access to the visitor log, the badge issuance screen, and intercom recordings for the last 5 minutes. Also, the roster for tonight's front desk contract team. Email the preservation notice to compliance while you are walking." The room tilts in favor of the quiet voice. The receptionist starts a sentence. "Look, this is a private event and we have to protect our guests, and your name is not on," and then stops when the elevator opens and a director steps out with a tablet in a blue case. He walks like 2 departments at once. He does not ask who is who. He already knows. He holds up the tablet and swipes to the access dashboard. Owner credential appears in calm white text. Under it, audit led, with a contract ID and a renewal date that matches the banner by the stairs. The guards look at the screen, then at the badge on the counter, then at the camera phones now filming from chest level. The receptionist pulls her hand back as if the plastic might burn. The director asks a single question to the desk. "Do you want proof of the system?" He turns the tablet so the camera sees. The log shows a manual override added to the CEO's profile 30 minutes earlier. It also shows the employee ID that was added to it. The CEO does not smile. She marks the moment with words that fit inside one breath. Timestamp 0150. Owner access confirmed. Manual override detected. On-site review begins. Then, to the desk, still level, still direct, finish that sentence, then step away from the computer. The director sets the tablet on the counter and opens the visitor management console. The screen shows a clean grid of arrivals, each row a timestamp, a credential level, and a badge number. The CEO's name sits in the middle with a red tag that says guests only and a second flag that reads risk review pending. A reason column claims capacity control. The director taps into the audit trail. A manual override was applied at 6:31 p.m. by user ID FD217. The note field is blank. That matters more than most people realize. In regulated spaces, silence in a note field is a decision you can measure. The CEO speaks softly, almost like she is reading a checklist to the room. Which policy authorizes a manual override on an owner profile? Which policy permits confiscation of a badge without an incident number? Which policy allows the intercom to label an invited attendee as unauthorized before a supervisor reviews the log? She is not aiming for an apology, she is building a chain of custody. A junior concierge in a navy vest edges closer. He has a name pin and nervous hands. He quietly points at a laminated sheet behind the desk. It is the standard operating procedure for events. Line 6 reads manual overrides restricted to shift supervisor with written rationale and immediate log note. The director follows the finger, then looks at the roster. The shift supervisor signed out early 20 minutes ago. The override was applied after that. Small facts, but they draw the outline of intent. Security loosens their stance. Not to retreat, but to avoid becoming part of the record. The reception monitor still shows the misspelled last name. The CEO corrects it once, speaking the letters slowly so the audio file will catch each one. She asks the director to pull the guest import file used for tonight. He drags it onto the screen. It shows the correct name, the roll line that says audit lead, and a note from the event planner that the owner will arrive without entourage and prefers low visibility. The contrast is its own verdict. Ops Legal confirms by phone that the preservation notice is out. Compliance is looped. The email subject line reads, "To retain all media and access logs of lobby incidents." The director scans the intercom history for the last 10 minutes. 3 entries appear. The recording can be played. He asks if the desk wants to offer context before he hits play. The receptionist says a colleague told her to keep non-guests away from the escalator due to VIP movement. Which colleague? She gestures toward a manager coming down the steps in a tuxedo with a radio. He looks polished and slightly winded from moving between floors. The manager arrives and tries to frame the issue as a misunderstanding. Private floor, press embargo, protect the keynote. He says the words quickly, the way people do when they think tempo is a substitute for proof. The CEO does not look at him. She asks which section of the contract with the venue grants the right to downgrade owner access at check-in. He does not know. The director does. Vendor portal under clause 14, equal service standards, anti-bias training, recert each quarter, audit rights on demand, immediate suspension for gatekeeping by label. The clause is not aggressive. It is preventative. It recognizes that procedures can be misused. Phones keep filming. The crowd is not hostile. They are a mirror. The CEO is steady. She requests the badge to be returned and a fresh one issued with the owner shown on the front, not as an ego. As for accuracy, the desk hesitates, then prints a new badge. The printer head ticks across slowly, like a clock you can hear. The director sets the old badge in a small evidence bag from a drawer and writes the time on the label. The junior concierge clears his throat and adds one more quiet fact. The CRM uses an auto-suggest feature when names are typed. If you click the wrong one, the The system inherits tags from a different profile for 90 days. It can attach guests only by mistake if someone once checked that box. The director looks at him for a long beat and nods. That is the kind of detail a court respects. Not a hunch, a specific mechanism. The CEO thanks him by name. Thank you for pointing to the exact line. That sentence carries weight in a room like this. It signals a path away from blame and towards system repair. She then returns to the manager and asks for the training schedule. Who is overdue? Who signed off? Who is recertified this month? She wants dates, not promises. On her phone, the recording timestamp hits 4 minutes. The tension shifts from whether she belongs to whether the company belongs to its own standards. The director begins a live export of logs to a secure folder. The manager calls upstairs for guidance. The desk staff waits for a script that will not save them. The concierge resets a rope line near the escalator and gives the path a clear opening. The CEO steps half a pace forward, not to occupy territory, but to test whether the human triangle reforms. It does not. She asks one last Socratic question before the next phase. Why did the override apply only to me? No one answers. The tablet shows a single change, a single profile, a single hand. The clock keeps moving toward the moment where payouts pause and access goes dark. The director cues the intercom playback. The ceiling speakers switch from hiss to a clean clip. A voice labels an unauthorized person at the desk and instructs security to hold the line. The recording includes the time code and the user ID that pressed the page button. The tablet links that intercom event to the same user ID that applied the manual override. It is not a feeling, it is a join between systems. The lobby manager wants to reframe before the clip ends. He talks about safety, celebrity guests, and the need to manage optics. He avoids the part where the badge was taken with no incident number. The CEO keeps it plain. Return the badge to my custody for chain of evidence. Issue a corrected credential that reflects the owner. Preserve the intercom files and the badge issuance log. The manager nods but tries to bargain for later. The director declines. Preservation is now. Ops Legal arrives at the door, not rushed, carrying a second tablet and an envelope. He places a printed notice on the counter. It instructs the front desk contractor to retain all artifacts related to the lobby incident and to produce a roster of individuals who touched the CRM or the badge printer after 6:15. He does not raise his voice. He marks the envelope with a date and time, then photographs it for the record. The camera phones in the crowd become extra witnesses, but the process would stand even without them. The receptionist asks if she can just apologize and get everyone moving. The CEO answers with a question. Which policy number governs the decision you made? The receptionist looks at the laminated sheet and does not find what she needs. The junior concierge points again, now at a training checklist that requires a call to a supervisor before public announcements about access. The entry is initiated by the same user ID as the override, but the box for live check is blank. It is a small square that means a rule was skipped. Security asks if they need to clear the area. The director shakes his head. No need. The record prefers light. He opens the access dashboard and shows a timeline view. 30 minutes before the CEO arrived, the user ID FD217 altered one profile. 20 minutes later, the intercom labeled the same individual as unauthorized. There are no other manual actions on any other guest. That line of dots is not an accident. It is a path. The manager begins to realize what this means. He asks if the company can handle this offline to avoid public confusion. Ops Legal declines. The policy is public. The training is public. The correction will be public. The CEO adds that the goal is not spectacle. The goal is standards. She asks the manager to fetch the shift supervisor who signed out. He admits the supervisor left early for an off-site dinner and cannot be reached. The director counters by opening the staffing app and pinging the supervisor with a message that includes the words urgent, audit, and ethics. The front desk contractor lead arrives from the service corridor with a clipboard and a careful expression. He sees the envelope on the counter and understands the level of scrutiny. He confirms that the employee behind the desk is indeed FD217, a temp assigned for peak hours. The lead tries to take responsibility on behalf of the team. The CEO stops him gently. Responsibility follows the log. The printer hums and produces a new badge with the correct name and owner in clear font. The director slides it across to the CEO. She does not put it on. She sets it beside the evidence bag that holds the confiscated badge. Two identical rectangles tell two different stories. One issued against protocol, one issued in compliance with contract and law. A hush settles as Ops Legal opens a narrow panel on the console. It reveals a compliance tool most guests never see, a button that begins a site audit and locks certain functions until a review is complete. He explains the steps calmly for the recording. The button does not punish. It preserves. It prevents further edits and freezes bonus calculations related to guest satisfaction for the affected shift until the investigation concludes. It also notifies the vendor portal that a review is active. The manager asks if freezing bonuses is necessary. The CEO answers, with time. We are at minute 6. The logs are intact. The override is mapped to an individual. The intercom call is archived. The badge was seized without an incident number. The crowd did not create the problem. The camera only made it harder to ignore. She looks at the junior concierge and adds one instruction. Please print the training roster with recert dates for the front desk and security. The concierge moves quickly and returns with a list. 3 names are overdue by a month, 2 were due tomorrow. FD 217 has never completed the module on non-discrimination and access control. The manager starts to speak, then stops. The director reads the roster into the record. Ops Legal marks the overdue names for immediate scheduling and makes a note that the vendor contract requires recert for all temps before posting at the desk. The CEO closes the loop for this part of the night. Badge returned to custody. Correct badge issued. Preservation notice delivered. Audit button engaged. Roster obtained. She looks at the desk, not unkindly, and says the words that always land both as warning and as invitation. I am here for standards. Then she steps to the side of the counter, not to leave, but to give the system a chance to show whether it still knows how to work. The director mirrors the tablet to a lobby display so everyone can see the same truth. No theatrics, just a clean dashboard with timestamps and user actions. A thin blue bar slides as he scrubs to 631. There it is. User FD 217 opens the owner profile, changes a field from owner to guest, saves without a note, and exits. The cursor pauses like a held breath, then moves to badge control. The badge print queue shows a cancel command. A minute later, the intercom button logs a page labeling an unauthorized person at the desk. 3 systems, 1 signature. It is not personal, it is procedural. The manager asks to turn the screen away to protect privacy. Ops Legal answers that privacy protects guests, not misconduct. Faces are not on the dashboard, only actions. The crowd stays quiet, a soft hush that feels more like a courtroom than a lobby. The CEO keeps her posture the same, the quiet center of a wheel that is finally turning in the right direction. She asks for CCTV from the angle above the badge printer and the ceiling speaker. The director pulls up a split view. The camera shows the receptionist palming the temporary badge, sliding it under a blotter, and pressing the intercom button with the same hand. Time code matches the system log down to the second. The receptionist stares at the screen, eyes flicking between the footage and the red dot that marks the record. The manager starts to apologize to the CEO. She stops him. Apology follows repair. The junior concierge clears his throat and mentions another artifact. The visitor kiosk captures a copy of the event RSVP from the planner's export. If you scan the QR at the desk, the system displays the canonical entry. The director nods and scans. The kiosk shows the CEO's full name spelled correctly, role set to audit led, and a field that reads owner visit confirmed. In the lower right, the vendor portal logo sits like a silent witness. The manager looks smaller without being any shorter. The CEO asks for a sequence that sounds simple but lands heavy. Why did the manual change affect only 1 record? Why did the intercom label follow the badge seizure? Why did no one open the SOP before using the ceiling speakers? The receptionist tries to answer with intent, saying she was trying to keep things orderly. The CEO returns to data. Show me where the policy instructs you to seize first and check later. The laminated sheet on the wall answers for her. Ops Legal opens the envelope again and removes a short form labeled immediate actions. He reads it aloud for the record. Preserve all logs. Issue accurate credentials. Identify responsible users. Notify vendor portal. Initiate training review. Engage audit lock. The boxes are ticked as each action completes. One box remains blank. Identify responsible supervisors. The manager admits the signed out supervisor left FD 217 without coverage. That admission goes into the record, not to humiliate, but because missing coverage is how small powers grow teeth. Minute 7 arrives on the CEO's recording. She notes the time and adds one sentence for clarity. No crowd interference, no threat, only misuse of process. Then she asks the director to open the contract tab in the vendor portal. Clause 14 appears again, now on a page the lobby can read. Equal service standards, no downgrades without justification, and supervisor sign-off. Anti-bias recertification required every quarter. Audit rights on demand. The words are dull unless you have needed them. Tonight, they are bright. The manager tries one last pivot. He suggests moving the conversation upstairs, away from cameras. The CEO considers the suggestion and declines. The record is the room. She is not here for a scene, she is here for standards. She gestures to the concierge. Please bring the portable projector. Let us align everyone to the same policy sheet at once. The concierge returns with a small unit that throws a clear rectangle onto the back wall. The contract clause fills the space where a floral arrangement used to be. The director highlights the line about suspension for gatekeeping by label. He asks the contractor lead whether he understands what a label means in this context. The lead answers correctly. A label is a system tag used to pre-sort people. When misused, it becomes a soft barrier that looks like a procedure. The lobby understands now. It is not about who raised a voice, it is about who raised a flag. Ops Legal drafts a short push notification to the event staff channel. It states that equal service standards are in immediate effect at all checkpoints, that audit lock is active, and that the front desk is under review. The manager reads it on his phone as it arrives. He nods once. He will not love this message, but he will not forget it. The CEO asks a final question for this stage. Has anyone else tonight been relabeled from owner to guest? The director filters the log. No, only one profile. The pattern is singular. The effect was public. The motive is not the subject of tonight. The remedy is. She turns slightly toward the camera lenses without performing for them. The fix begins now. Then she looks down at the evidence bag, at the badge that started this, and sets her hand beside it like a seal without flower. The room feels different, not quieter, just more honest. Ops Legal asks the desk to pause transactions for 2 minutes so statements can be taken cleanly. The point is not punishment. It is preventing new noise from contaminating the record. He opens a blank incident form and reads the header into the phone microphone. Location, lobby. Time, 7:12. Parties present, front desk contractor FD 217, lobby manager, security pair, Alpha and Bravo, junior concierge, operations director, legal. Observers, multiple guests with phones recording. He asks FD 217 to describe the sequence of actions in the order they occurred. No explanations yet, just verbs. The receptionist started with checked arrivals, saw a gap, removed a badge, and made a page. She leaves out the manual change. Ops Legal asks the follow-up. Which field did you edit? She looks at the screen and names it. Owner to guest. He asks why there is no note. She says it was busy. The quiet lands like a stamp. The CEO does not look at her. She looks at the laminated SOP and reads lines 6 through 8 into the record. That gives everyone a neutral anchor. Then she asks security for their log. The guard on the left produces a small notebook with times and initials. It shows a call for presence at 6:33 and a decision to adopt a block posture without contact. No physical description, no escalation. The next line reads the intercom used. The last line reads waiting for the supervisor. Small entries, but they matter. Restraint is visible on paper. The junior concierge speaks softly to Ops Legal and asks whether it is appropriate to mention the auto-suggested behavior in the CRM. Ops Legal smiles without warmth and says, yes, facts do not incriminate. They clarify. The concierge explains the 90-day inheritance rule again and suggests that someone may have clicked the wrong profile weeks ago, making tonight's error easier. The director notes the point and flags the vendor for a patch. To the lobby, it looks like mercy. To the system, it reads as root cause work. The manager asks to show good faith by reopening the rope line and offering the CEO an escort upstairs. The CEO declines until the corrected badge is logged as issued and activated. The director prints a receipt that includes a timestamp, a badge number, and the field set to the owner. He slides it into the evidence bag with the confiscated badge. Chain of custody is an unglamorous phrase. It is also how verdicts survive the morning after. Ops Legal sends a short note to compliance that a preliminary statement has been taken and that the involved employee has admitted to the field change. He marks the letter with words that matter later. Intent, not determined. This is not kindness. It is discipline. You do not guess at the motive when the record will supply one. The receptionist begins to apologize again. The CEO nods once to acknowledge the human part and then brings the process back into view. She asks the contractor lead if FD 217 was posted at the desk without completing the non-discrimination and access control module. The lead hesitates and then admits the gap. He explains that staffing was tight for award night and the temp agency promised to fast-track training. The CEO thanks him for the truth and asks him to request a list of all temps currently posted across entrances with overdue modules. He texts the request immediately. The lobby manager's radio chirps. Upstairs wants to know if the keynote block is compromised. The manager answers that the lobby is under review and that equal standards are in effect. The radio is not a character, but it carries a tone. Control is learning what compliance sounds like when spoken aloud. The director turns the lobby display to a different panel. It is the audit lock status screen. It confirms that the affected workstation is in review mode and that badge printing remains enabled only for corrections authorized by ops and legal. The status also shows bonus calculations for tonight's front desk team are placed on hold pending closeout of the incident. The manager exhales. The front desk contractor closes his eyes for a heartbeat and then steadies his grip on the clipboard. They do not argue, they absorb. The CEO asks for the venue's last recertification date. The director pulls the credentialing roster. Most staff are current. A cluster of temps are not. The junior concierge is more than current. He completed an optional module on de-escalation last week. The CEO asks his name again and says, "Thank you" on record. The cameras catch it. Promotion in rooms like this can begin with one accurate sentence. Ops Legal hands FD 217 a short document acknowledging participation in an ongoing review and explaining rights and obligations not to alter systems or contact witnesses. The language is plain. It preserves employment protections while protecting the process. He asks if she understands and offers her a quiet space to read. She nods. For the first time, she looks relieved to have a script. The manager asks if this can be closed tonight. The CEO answers with a list that sounds like a list but is only breath control. Return of badge documented. Correct credential issued. Preservation notice executed. Audit lock active. Statements taken. Training gaps identified. Contract clause invoked. Next come the three measures that make standards real. Terminate the posting of anyone who bypassed policy. Freeze payouts linked to the shift. Log everything into the vendor portal with artifacts attached. She does not raise her voice. She sets a metronome for the next hour. The lobby understands that this is not a threat, it is a schedule. Ops Legal finishes the preliminary statements and signals the action phase. The director keeps the lobby display on the audit panel so every step lands in the open. The CEO asks the contractor lead to identify who has the authority to assign or remove a temp from the front desk. He answers that, he does, with confirmation from the lobby manager when a shift is live. She nods and asks him to proceed. Remove FD 217 from the post pending review. Note the time. Provide a quiet space and a paid ride home. The instruction is careful because accountability is not cruelty. The lead records the time, escorts the receptionist to a chair behind the partition, and radios for a replacement who has current certifications. The manager looks at the bonus hold status again as if looking could undo it. The CEO speaks for the camera and the room. The hold is policy. It prevents a reward built on a breach. It will lift after the closeout when the record is complete. She asks the director to open the payroll linkage screen. He confirms the hold applies only to the shift and that base pay is unaffected. The cameras catch that line. The fix is firm, not vindictive. The junior concierge steps forward with a tray of new visitor lanyards in case the check-in line spikes while the desk resets. It is a small move that tilts the room back towards service instead of spectacle. The CEO thanks him again and asks him to stand with the manager while the projector shows the training schedule. Names and dates fill the wall. The overdue cells are not highlighted in red, they are simply visible. The manager reads them and admits the backlog. He tries to justify staffing shortages. The CEO cuts that off gently. Shortage does not undo the standard. She asks for a plan by morning that prioritizes access control and anti-bias for anyone posted at a gateway. She adds that the plan must include a check for the CRM auto-suggest bug and the 90-day inheritance rule, the concierge explained. Ops legal drafts a preservation notice addendum that covers the intercom board, the badge printer cache, and the workstation browser history for the last hour. He sends it to compliance and copies the contractor. He asks the director to initiate a mirror image of the affected terminal so the tech team can review without touching the live system. The director taps a key sequence and a progress bar begins. The lobby watches a rectangle crawl rightward, a quiet sign that a system can secure its own memory. The contractor lead returns with a replacement desk agent wearing a current credential on a neck strap. The agent reviews the SOP aloud with the manager before touching the keyboard. It is not a theater. It is a reset conducted where the breach occurred. The CEO remains still and lets the audience see that no one is punished for reading rules in public. She asks the agent to issue a corrected badge again, this time with the camera placed so the field labels are visible. Owner and audit lead render clearly. The old badge remains sealed in the evidence bag. The corrected badge is scanned once to activate and then handed over with a brief line. Credential active. That sentence is worth more than an apology. Upstairs, the event planner texts the manager asking if the keynote walk is green. The manager replies that it is green and that the owner will be passing through. The text reads differently now that the lobby is aligned. The rope line opens. The bellhop moves the cart. The crowd lowers phones from their faces to their chests. They are still watching. They are also learning what a compliant reset looks like. The director uses the projector to show the clause about suspension for gatekeeping by label. He explains that suspension is not about a person's worth. It is about isolating the conduct from the platform that amplified it. He turns to the contractor lead and asks whether the team understands that a label like guests only is not neutral when applied selectively. The lead says yes. He has understood since the logs came up on the screen and the cameras captured the join between systems. He adds that he will rotate a seasoned agent to the desk for the rest of the night and will send a second agent to the ballroom entrance to ensure consistent check-in handling. The CEO asks the manager for one more operational fix. Place a small stand at the desk with a printed excerpt of the equal service clause and a QR code linking to the full policy. She is not chasing public points. She is setting a pressure valve so the next person who meets a soft barrier can point at the same rule without raising a voice. The concierge brings a stand from the cloakroom and prints the excerpt. The rectangle sits beside a bowl of mints, ordinary and potent. Minute 9 arrives on the phone recording. The CEO narrates the time and the actions taken so far. Post removed pending review, bonus hold active, logs preserved, correct badge issued, training backlog acknowledged and scheduled, policy excerpt posted. She pauses so the silence can file itself, then calls the board representative with a single sentence. The site is stabilizing, the audit proceeds. She listens, says thank you, and ends the call. It is the least dramatic part of the night and the most important. Power that does not shout tends to last. The lobby exhales. The manager nods to security to shift from block posture to presence at the edge of the carpet. They ease their stance without leaving. The contractor lead checks his phone and confirms that the temp agency has received the notice and is preparing documentation. Ops Legal closes the incident form for this phase and opens a new one for systemic findings. The CEO glances at the projector, then at the people. She does not ask for gratitude. She asks whether the desk can serve the next guest. The replacement agent smiles like a person who has just been handed a clear map. Yes, ma'am. The desk is ready. Minute lands. The recording timer flips, and the room has the clarity of a signed document. The director switches the display from the audit lock panel to the vendor portal. A banner at the top reads Active Review. Below it, the contract performance widgets show 3 green checks turning amber. Response time, training, compliance, access, accuracy. The shift's numbers dip as the system recalculates, with the override and intercom misuse counted as events. No one argues with a meter that moves in public. The lobby manager asks whether the amber means penalties. Ops Legal answers in plain terms. It means consequences are in scope. The contract ties a portion of the monthly payout to training, compliance, and access accuracy. Tonight affects that calculation. The CEO keeps her eyes on the screen and adds context the crowd can hear. This is not about a bad night. This is about whether guests and owners are treated to the same standard every night. The numbers are not punishment. They are feedback. She asks the contractor to open his dashboard. He does. It shows staffing, certifications, and a graph of incidents in the past quarter. The graph is low with 2 small spikes. He clicks the spikes. One is a misprint resolved in minutes. The other is a complaint labeled profile mismatch at a different entrance last month. The detail page shows it was closed with a warning. The CEO looks at the manager. She does not accuse. She asks whether that earlier mismatch triggered any retraining. He admits it did not. The portal notes it now as a missed opportunity. The cameras get that phrase. It is not theatrical. It is honest. Ops Legal drafts a short memo to the board representative and to the brand's quality lead. It states that the venue is cooperating, that a temp was removed from post, that training gaps were identified, and that a second mismatch in the quarter suggests a systemic fix is due. He includes the remedy plan the CEO already spoke into existence. Immediate retraining for access control and anti-bias, a software check on the CRM's auto-suggests inheritance, a policy excerpt at the desk. He clicks send. The memo is not a threat. It ties action to time. Security steps 2 paces back, leaving a clear lane to the elevators. The replacement agent checks in a family with strollers and a pair dressed for the ballroom without friction. The rope line flows. This is what standards look like at work. No apology banners. Just a process that no longer breaks on one person's label. The CEO signals the director to open the panel labeled sanctions. It is where the heavy tools live. Termination of posting, freeze of variable payouts. Log preservation triggers, extended. She speaks the triad clearly, so the recording does not miss a word. Terminate the posting of the employee who bypassed policy. Freeze bonus pools tied to this shift and to the month's access accuracy metric until recertification is complete. Log all artifacts to the vendor portal and mirror to the brand archive. The director clicks each item as she speaks. The portal records the actions with timestamps and user IDs. The contractor lead accepts the termination of posting with a single typed line, removed from client site pending review. He includes the offer of training and reassignment after recertification at a different account if performance allows. The line reads like fairness and consequence at once. The manager asks if the brand will announce anything publicly. The CEO says the policy speaks for itself. A quiet statement will be posted to the event channel and to the lobby display. Equal standards enforced. Audit in progress. No disruption to service. She gestures to the concierge. Please draft it. He types it and pushes it to the screen. It is short and unadorned. It calms the instinct for rumor without naming anyone. The director invites the CEO to verify the preservation list. She scans it. Badge control logs, intercom audio, CCTV angles, access dashboard exports, the staffing roster, training records, the kiosk RSVP snapshot, the evidence bag with both badges, the printer receipt, the incident statements. She adds one more item, the radio traffic transcript between lobby and ballroom for the relevant window. The manager nods and requests it from the comm system. He looks relieved to turn toward a task that is about doing, not defending. Ops Legal asks the junior concierge to step forward. He reads a short commendation into the record for accuracy and courage in pointing to the SOP and explaining the CRM inheritance behavior. The CEO adds that promotions are not promises made in the heat of a scene, they are decisions made when the record is complete. But a temp title begins tonight. Standards Ambassador, Acting. The concierge looks stunned, then steady. The cameras catch a small nod. It is not sentimental. It is procedural dignity. The elevator door opens and a board representative steps out. No entourage, a tablet in hand. He scans the display, listens to the tale of Ops Legal's summary, and turns to the CEO. Do you need anything else to complete the on-site phase? She answers with the last items. A signed acknowledgement from the contractor confirming the training plan and the staffing changes. An email to all desk posts tonight reaffirming equal service standards. A scheduled recertification block on the calendar for tomorrow morning. The board rep types while she speaks. Consider it done. He does not make a speech. He makes a calendar entry and a task ticket with names. The CEO picks up the corrected badge at last and clips it on. It reads what it should have read from the first minute. Owner, audit, lead. She steps through the rope line. The lobby does not cheer. It resets. The intercom stays silent. The projector dims to a neutral screen. The replacement agent calls the next guest. Standards are not a mood, they are a habit. And tonight, the habit is back on track. The board representative stays near the display while the director opens a different pane on the vendor portal, the Identity and Authority tab. It lists the entities who hold decision power over standards and payouts. The CEO's profile sits at the top. Owner, audit, lead, contract signer. Beneath it are delegated roles with time windows and scope. The lobby can see it because nothing personal appears here, just authority lines and effective dates. The director taps the signature archive. The screen shows a renewal executed last quarter with her digital sign and a countersign from the brand. The clause numbers match the policy sheet now printed at the desk. When you reveal a title, you back it with contracts and timestamps, not a raised voice. She asks for the last year of audit activity across this site. The portal renders a tidy series of blue ticks with 2 amber marks for minor corrective actions. The first was a signage placement error, solved in a day. The second was a training gap, closed in 48 hours. Tonight's event appears as a new amber item with a short descriptor, manual override without note, intercom misuse, badge seizure without incident number. The language is neutral because the system is... The weight comes from what follows. Corrected badge issued, post removed pending review, logs preserved, recertification scheduled, payout freeze applied per contract. The manager watches the timeline as if seeing a mirror he had avoided. He asks if the public needs to know the owner was the person affected. The CEO shakes her head. The public needs to know that the process is intact. She will not be the story. The standard will. She asks the director to switch the display from the portal to the internal mailer so the room can read the communication as it goes out. The subject line is simple. Equal service standards enforced. The body explains the steps concluded and the ones to come, lists the preservation measures, and links to the policy excerpt now sitting by the mint bowl. It closes with a sentence that matters in every language. Dignity is not a tiered service. Ops Legal moves to the access console and begins a controlled pull from the CCTV spectrum. He copies angles that include the badge printer, the intercom console, and the desk surface. Each clip receives a hash in the archive and a note about chain of custody. He also exports the audio from the intercom board into a WAV file and attaches it to the portal ticket. The process looks dry by design. Dry survives headlines. Dry survives courts. Dry survives memory. The junior concierge stands at the edge of the desk, answering guests who whisper to ask if they should wait. He tells them service continues and points to the replacement agent, who processes credentials with a calm cadence. The lobby is not turned into a stage, it is turned into an example. The bellhop rolls the cart past, security keeps a respectful drift, and the camera phones drop lower as curiosity becomes comprehension. The board representative asks a narrow question with long legs. How did the override get past a supervisor sign-off requirement? The director pulls the staffing log. The supervisor left early. The authorization box that should have been red stayed gray because the role was out of session. That design flaw is not an excuse. It is a bug that can be patched by morning. The CEO asks for a change request to require an active supervisor code for any manual downgrade of an owner or a keynote figure. The director writes it, attaches the clips, and stamps it with a time. The vendor portal prioritizes the ticket automatically when an active review flag is on. The manager's radio chirps with a question from upstairs. Is the owner coming to the ballroom now? The CEO answers to the room, so the record carries it. Yes. After the policy excerpt was posted, after the corrected badge activated, after the preservation list was verified, and after the post removal was logged. Sequence matters because it turns a scene into a standard. Before she moves, she completes one more reveal that is more cultural than technical. She asks the contractor lead to read out loud the line that defines gatekeeping by label. He does. A label is not a neutral word when it controls a doorway. Used selectively, it becomes a barrier that looks like procedure. The room holds the sentence the way a good room does. The concierge lowers his eyes for a second and then looks up, clearer. The director hands the CEO a slim folder with hard copies of the key artifacts, each stamped with a date and hour. She tucks it under her arm without flour. Paper is still the quietest proof in a digital night. Ops Legal confirms the texts have gone to every desk post. The projector cycles back to a neutral lobby scene, a slow-moving graphic with the brand's values. The manager thanks the guests for their patience. No script now, no spin, just a plain statement. We serve by the book, we slipped, we reset. The CEO gives the manager a small operational task as she turns toward the elevator. Tomorrow morning, before the doors open, run a desk drill. 3 scenarios: a misspelled name, a badge mismatch, a VIP arrival without entourage. Read the SOP out loud and role-play the steps. Invite the concierge to lead. She looks at the camera lenses one last time, not to perform but to set an expectation. Proof beats volume. Policies protect people when people protect policies. Then she steps into the car, the doors close, and the lobby returns to its usual hum, altered in the way a place is altered when it has heard itself on record and recognized its better self. The ballroom doors open to a low tide of music and conversation. The CEO steps in with the board representative and Ops Legal a half pace behind, the director carrying the slim folder. The event planner meets them at the threshold with a careful smile that reads relief more than cheer. She gestures toward a side dais with a small projector already warmed. The room is not a jury, but it is a stakeholder. The CEO keeps the rhythm she set downstairs. No drama, just sequence. She asks the planner to lower the house music for 1 minute. The planner nods to audio. The chatter softens. The CEO faces the room without taking the main stage. She speaks at a conversational volume that the mics carry to the back. We enforce equal service standards at every checkpoint. A process slipped in the lobby. We corrected it. The audit is active. Service is uninterrupted. Thank you for your patience. The words are short and complete. They are designed to close rumor loops before they start. On a side screen, the director throws a single slide. It is not a name or a face. It is a checklist with timestamps. Correct badge issued and activated. Preservation notice delivered. Intercom and badge logs mirrored. Post removed pending review. Training gaps scheduled. Vendor portal review flag set. The board representative adds 1 sentence for governance. The contract's oversight clause is engaged. The remedy runs tonight. The follow-up is calendared for the morning. No one claps. They do not need to. The clarity is the applause. The planner thanks them and gives the signal for music to rise again. The CEO steps off the dais and moves along the aisle toward a reserved table near a side exit. She is stopped by a vendor partner who whispers, "If everything is truly stable." She answers with what can be said on record. Stable and in review. He nods and means it. Stability with a record beats gloss without one. At the table, Ops Legal opens the folder and slides 3 short documents across for signature. The first is the termination of posting acknowledgement for the temp who bypassed policy, countersigned by the contractor, lead with language that holds space for recertification and reassignment at a different site after training and review. The second is the freeze order on variable payouts linked to the shift and the access accuracy metric for the month, scoped per contract, base pay untouched, release contingent on documented closeout. The third is the logging statement that lists every artifact preserved and the locations of their secure mirrors, including the radio traffic transcript now added to the set. The CEO signs each with a single stroke. The board representative initiates the witness line. The director photographs the signatures beside the time on his watch and uploads the images to the portal ticket. The event planner asks quietly if a public-facing line should go to the guest messaging channel. The CEO suggests the same language that now sits by the lobby mint bowl. Equal standards enforced, audit in progress, no disruption to service. The planner types it and presses send. A soft buzz ripples across the room as phones receive it. The message is short enough to be read without becoming a topic. The board representative mentions the junior concierge by name and asks if the CEO intends to formalize the acting title. She says yes after the record closes. Tonight, a note goes into his file and a training stipend is authorized. Tomorrow, a small ceremony at the desk at 9 sharp. Ops Legal drafts the HR note on a tablet and the director schedules the calendar invite that includes the concierge, the manager, the contractor lead, and a training liaison. The gesture is not decorative. It tells a building what it will reward. A keynote speaker approaches with a practiced grin and jokes that it looked like a scene downstairs. The CEO lets the joke pass on its own momentum and answers with a principle. Proof beats volume. He nods, then changes the subject to the foundation the gala supports. She listens, contributes a figure already committed by the board, and asks for the exact schedule for compliance workshops the brand co-sponsors next quarter. He seems surprised to be discussing training in tuxedo air, then realizes the line from operations to values is not a line, it is the whole map. The director checks the vendor portal one more time and shows the status to the board representative. The green checks are returning as corrections flow. Training compliance will flip after tomorrow's sessions. Access accuracy will normalize when the software patch for supervisor code requirement goes live at dawn. Response time has already stabilized. The amber markers remain as history, not as a bruise, but as context. Down the aisle, a server pours water, hesitates, and whispers to the CEO that the lobby staff wanted to say thank you for reading the SOP out loud instead of treating it like a secret. The CEO answers gently that policy only protects people when people protect policy. The server smiles in the way that says a sentence will be repeated in a break room later. The board representative rises to greet a small group. Before he steps away, he asks the last question of the night that matters more than it sounds. Do you need anything else to finish this phase? The CEO looks at the folder, the portal, the room, just the morning drills and the recertification block. He nods, taps the schedule on his screen, and moves into the crowd. A violin line lifts. The CEO lets the room be what it was meant to be, then turns her chair slightly so she can see a sliver of the side screen where the checklist sits in standby. She is not waiting for another incident. She is watching a habit reform. At minute 12 of a night that could have become a headline, the verdict sits where it belongs, not as punishment, but as design. Terminate the posting that broke the standard. Freeze incentives that would reward it. Log everything so memory cannot negotiate with convenience. The rest is maintenance, and maintenance is the real power move. Morning is already built into the night. The director drafts the audit brief while the ballroom breathes again, a clean one-page plan that reads like a promise you can measure. Scope defines the checkpoints to be tested. Objectives list what must never fail again. The method covers artifacts first, opinions later. The CEO reads it once, adjusts nothing, and sets the timestamp. By 9 o'clock, the desk will run drills. By 10, recertification begins. By noon, the vendor portal will reflect full compliance or explain why not with receipts attached. Ops Legal paces the cadence. He writes the preservation summary that will live longer than any clip. It names each system by its proper noun and each clip by its hash. It identifies the individuals who access the console during the window and confirms their statements are on file. It notes the bug already assigned to engineering, the supervisor code requirement, and the design change that prevents a manual downgrade without an active sign-off. It is unglamorous, careful, and strong. Dry enough to pass through 3 departments without swelling into drama. The manager meets the CEO by the service corridor to review the schedule. He will open the lobby at 7:30 with the replacement agent and the junior concierge. He will have printouts of the SOP at each station, dog-eared on purpose, and a stack of policy excerpts with the QR code in case guests ask what changed. He will run the 3 scripted scenarios while the director watches. He will take notes on anything that wobbles. He offers this before she asks. Repair is contagious in rooms that finally see their own reflection. The contractor commits to a temporary shift reshuffle that pulls certified agents forward and sends temps to shadow until they clear recertification. He sends a message to the temp agency to block any assignment to desk posts without proof of completed modules. He knows the freeze on variable payouts will sit heavy on his team for a week. He also knows what would feel worse: a headline without a fix. He leaves with a checklist, not with shame. Upstairs, the event planner pings the CEO to confirm the brand's community commitment still stands. The CEO says yes, and she adds a line she repeats often in rooms that prefer applause to maintenance. We fund what we train. Tomorrow's schedule includes a joint session with a civil rights partner the brand works with on service standards. Not as a stunt, but as a mirror. She asks the planner to book a quiet conference room and to order coffee for the frontline staff, who will join between shifts. Training is not a scold when it comes with a seat and a cup. The board representative pushes a short note into the governance archive. It records that oversight engaged in real time, that corrective action began on site, and that the next review will close after recertification. He sets a follow-up meeting on the calendar for 2 weeks, hence to review analytics from the portal. He is not chasing blame, he is building an arc from incident to insight. The junior concierge heads to the lobby to tidy the station before morning. He straightens the stand with the policy excerpt and tests the QR code. It opens a page that now includes a brief explainer on labels and gatekeeping in plain language. He is not wearing a new title yet, but he is already doing the job. He prints spare lanyards and tapes a small note on the badge printer reminding agents to read the field labels aloud as they issue credentials. Small habit, large effect. The software patch deploys at dawn. The supervisor code field lights up red if no one with the role is active, and the system will not accept a downgrade of owner or keynote profiles without a live sign-off. The engineer on call confirms the change in a terse line inside the ticket. The director tests it twice and records both attempts on video, one rejection, one approved with a code. He attaches the clips to the vendor portal. The amber mark beside access accuracy begins to cool. The manager sends an all-hands message to his desk staff that reads like an invitation, not a reprimand. We read the SOP together at 8. We drill 3 scenarios, we reset a habit. He includes the phrase equal service standards twice and the phrase proof on system once. He adds a sentence about the junior concierge leading the debrief. The team replies with short acknowledgments, no defensiveness, a little pride. At 9 sharp, the CEO is back at the desk with coffee that she sets down without remark. The drills run, a misspelled name corrected by reading the RSVP import aloud, a badge mismatch resolved by comparing the printer receipt to the activation log. A VIP arrival was handled without fanfare, the rope line opened, the label ignored because the policy is the only label that matters. Each pass is noted with time and initials. The room feels less like a place where incidents happen and more like a place where standards live. By 10, recertification begins. A trainer from the brand joins with a quiet slide deck and a stack of practical cases drawn from real entries in the portal. The temp who was removed from the post sits in the second row, eyes on the screen, rights protected, consequences intact. The contractor lead sits 2 seats over. No one has made an example. The example is the system. At noon, the vendor portal shows training compliance back to green. The payout freeze remains until closeout, and everyone can see why on the dashboard. The concierge pins a printed schedule near the stand for guests who notice the excerpt and ask what changed. The manager thanks his team without a speech, and security adjusts their posture to presence by design. The lobby feels like it did before the night started, except the policies have voices now. The CEO watches one more check-in flow cleanly and then steps away. Not a victory lap. A handoff to a habit built in public, logged in detail, and ready to outlast the mood of any room. The lobby opens with a steady morning rhythm. The junior concierge is already at the desk, lanyards squared, the policy excerpt stand aligned with the QR box facing the line. He looks like any frontline pro getting ready for a rush. The board representative arrives with HR and the director, not with a podium, but with a clipboard and a small envelope. The CEO comes last, coffee in one hand, the slim folder in the other. There is no announcement over the speakers. The room will remember because the record will. HR reads a 3-line commendation into the incident log where it belongs, identified the governing SOP in real time, prevented escalation by pointing to a rule instead of a person, provided technical insight on CRM, auto-suggest, and tag inheritance. The director adds the clip where the concierge's finger traces the exact line on the laminated sheet. The clip receives a hash and a caption for the archive. Accuracy is an action, not a vibe. The CEO asks the concierge to step to the inside edge of the counter so the cameras that always seem to be somewhere can see the same thing staff can see. She does not deliver a speech, she makes a record. Acting Standards Ambassador begins today. Duties include leading drills, maintaining the policy stand, cross-checking badge issuance practices, and logging any divergence from SOP with receipts attached. The board representative signs the temporary title notice and authorizes a stipend for the quarter tied to training outputs, not mood. HR slides a short roll description across for signature. The concierge signs with a hand that steadies in the second half of his name. Guests watch without a ripple of ceremony. They see a desk conduct a public reset that rewards behavior the system needs. The manager shakes the concierge's hand and takes his position slightly behind the desk, a visual shift that says authority is shared when standards are shared. Security adjusts to the carpet's edge and smiles in the way professionals do when the map gets clearer. The CEO hands the concierge a small kit in a clear pouch. Inside are laminated cards for quick quotes of contract clauses, a checklist card for the 3 common failure points, and a simple line to say when a moment tilts toward misuse of process. Proof on system. Say it and then do it. She asks him to add one more habit to the desk routine. Read new badge fields aloud at issuance, match against the activation log, and mark the match in a daily ledger. It is slow by seconds and fast by outcomes. Ops Legal updates the vendor portal with a note about the acting role and the expectation that the desk will complete 1 drill scenario per day for the next week. The system turns the note into a tiny meter labeled practice frequency. It starts at 0 and invites the team to move it. The board representative glances at the meter and smiles because you cannot fake practice in a portal that timestamps practice. The concierge thanks the room in a voice you could miss if you were not listening. He mentions the line that changed the night for him. A label is not a neutral word when it controls a doorway. He promises to keep the excerpt stand stocked and the QR code live even on busy days. He asks permission to run a short huddle at shift change to surface any patterns the team sees. The manager approves in front of everyone. Patterns beat stories. The event planner drops by the desk with a tray of water and adds a note to the internal channel that the Standards Ambassador will co-host a quarterly workshop with the brand's civil rights partner. Not a panel, a practice lab. Ops Legal nods. The portal receives a placeholder for the session with a date and a space for artifacts. When values become calendar entries, they grow teeth. A guest steps up to check in and asks if the desk is doing all this because of last night. The concierge answers plainly, "We are doing this because it is the job." He reads the name, spells it back, scans the RSVP import, issues the badge, reads the field labels out loud, and slides the credential across with a short sentence that will eventually become background noise. Credential active. The guest looks at the policy stand, taps the QR, and smiles. It is quiet, and it is enough. The CEO signs the last HR line and closes the folder. She looks at the concierge and offers the only sentence that fits the room. Keep the proof close and the voice calm. Then she steps back, not away, to give the desk space to be a desk. The board representative pockets his pen. The director marks the time. The lobby resets to the sound of service. The promotion was not a ribbon. It was a promise the building could keep at 9 in the morning as easily as at 9 at night. The afternoon phase is for receipts, not rumors. The director wheels a small projector to a neutral wall near the desk. The image is simple and legible, a timeline with timestamps and plain labels. Intercom page logged 7:04 p.m. Manual override detected 6:31 p.m. Badge seizure with no incident, number 7:02 p.m. Corrected badge issued and activated 7:14 p.m. Post removal pending review 7:16 p.m. Audit lock engaged 7:18 p.m. Each entry is backed by a clip or a log export with a hash ID. No faces, no names beyond roles. Transparency without spectacle. Ops Legal posts a brief to the internal channel and mirrors it to a guest-facing frequently asked questions via the QR stand. The frequently asked question speaks in clear phrases. What happened? A process slips at a checkpoint. What did you do? Corrected credentials, preserved logs, initiated review, scheduled recertification. Is service disrupted? No. Are employees named? No. We identify, conduct, and fix systems. A short push notification pings staff devices with the same language, equal service standards enforced, audit in progress. Service normal. The manager reads the timeline as a guest might and asks the question he used to dread, will this become a headline? The CEO answers with the only control a brand ever truly has. It will become a record. Headlines come and go, records stay and instruct. She points to the bottom of the slide where a small footer lists the repositories that now hold the artifacts. Vendor portal ticket 88271. Brand archive case 2311A, compliance hash set A9F. The crowd that forms is modest. A few guests, 2 line staff from upstairs, security at ease. No one is trading versions, they are reading the same screen. The junior concierge leads a short demo. He scans the QR, opens the frequently asked questions, taps the link labeled policy excerpt, and shows how the clause on equal service maps to what they did today. He reads one line aloud so the microphones catch it. Policies protect people when people protect policies. A guest nods and pockets the phone with the page still open, like a receipt you might want to keep. The event planner asks about privacy. Ops Legal explains the scrub. Faces blurred on any clip that leaves the secure archive. Audio clipped to relevant windows. Names limited to titles on public displays. The goal is to teach the procedure, not to point at a person. The planner exhales. This is the part that decides whether learning spreads or fear does. The board representative adds that the governance archive will include full versions under access control for audit and training purposes only. A vendor partner from another site steps to the edge of the group and asks if the brand will share the drill scripts. The CEO agrees on the spot. She asks the director to export the 3 scenarios with checklists and to attach the projector slide as a 1-page standard. He adds a footer with a caution. Do not copy without adapting to your SOP. Standards travel best when they use local doors. The manager suggests adding a small ticker to the lobby display each quarter showing training completion rates and average response times at checkpoints. The CEO likes the idea and turns it into work. The director opens a new ticket labeled Public Metrics Pilot and assigns the analytics lead. Ops Legal writes a 1-paragraph guardrail about what can be shown and what must remain internal. The concierge offers to test the display at off-peak hours. Suddenly, the big word transparency is just a set of tasks due next week. A guest approaches the desk with a quiet concern. Last night, she felt uneasy hearing the word unauthorized on the intercom. The manager thanks her for telling them. He points to the timeline, then to the frequently asked questions, and then he says the sentence that marks a culture change. We will measure the words we use, not just the minutes. Ops Legal notes it and adds a micro change to the intercom script library. Announce needs, not labels. Please send a supervisor to the desk, assistance required, no tag that becomes a barrier. The projector cycles to a second slide, where to go if something feels wrong. A small map shows the desk, the policy stand, and a QR link labeled Report a Barrier. The link opens a form that accepts a photo of a sign or a screen and routes it to compliance with a timestamp. The concierge volunteers to check the inbox at the end of each shift and log any pattern. Patterns beat anecdotes. The CEO reviews the slide deck from 3 steps back, as if testing whether it holds up at a glance. It does. She asks the director to schedule a weekly 5-minute receipts moment at the end of Monday morning. Same wall, same format, 1 timeline, 1 lesson, 1 fix. The manager agrees and slots it before the busiest window. Staff will see themselves as keepers of a record, not extras in a clip. Before the projector powers down, the board representative asks for 1 last line to seal the room's memory. The CEO nods and speaks to the camera that has stayed respectfully wide all afternoon. Last night was not about personality, it was about a process. We terminated the posting that bypassed policy, we froze incentives that would have rewarded it, We logged every artifact so memory cannot bend. Public proof is not about shame. It is about trust you can audit. She gestures for the projector to darken. The lobby returns to motion, and the receipts stay where they belong, one tap away. The aftercare runs like a checklist that learns to breathe. A week later, the vendor portal shows the freeze still in place, not as punishment, but as a gate. Training compliance flips to green across all desk posts. The software patch requiring an active supervisor code for manual downgrades moves from pilot to standard at dawn on day 3. The dashboard marks the change with a tiny green lock beside access accuracy. It is a small icon that means a system is less likely to confuse preference with policy. FD 217 completes the non-discrimination and access control modules, passes the assessment, and signs an acknowledgement about labels and gatekeeping. The contractor lead requests reassignment to a back office role at a different site where customer-facing authority is narrower. Ops Legal approves with conditions written cleanly, performance monitored. Recert due in 90 days. Rights protected. The posting at the lobby remains closed to temps until the manager can certify redundancy in coverage and training. The supervisor who left early receives documented counseling and a scheduling restriction for the quarter. It is not public, but it is real. He must be present for the next 3 desk drills and sign the closeout for each. The staffing app shows his initials beside the drill names, not a scarlet letter, a reminder that roles are railings. The junior concierge's acting title becomes permanent after a month of steady metrics and daily drill logs. HR issues a short letter, Standards, Ambassador. He receives a small stipend tied to practice frequency, not to praise volume. He keeps the policy stand stocked and the QR code printed even when the printer runs low. Guests now point to the stand before they point to a person. That is culture, not copy. The manager runs the Monday receipts moment for 3 weeks straight. 1 timeline, 1 fix, 5 minutes. Staff arrive early with coffee because the meeting does not waste them. The analytics lead pilots the public metrics ticker on the lobby display. It shows the last 30 days of training completion at checkpoints, the median response time for access issues, and the number of drills run. It does not show faces. It shows habits. The brand's civil rights partner hosts a practice lab in a conference room with chairs in a circle. No stage, no jargon. The lab works through 3 real cases adapted from the portal and invites frontline staff to narrate the moment they felt a tilt toward misuse of process. The CEO attends, not to give a speech, but to take notes. She adds 2 lines to the SOP afterward. Announce needs, not labels. Read fields aloud at issuance. Simple enough to remember, strong enough to hold. The board representative closes the governance ticket with a recap that is almost dull in its precision. Incident recorded with artifacts. Corrective action executed on site. System fixes deployed chain-wide. Training conducted with a partner. Metrics public within guardrails. Payout freeze lifted after compliance was restored and audit closed. He schedules a 3-month follow-up anyway. Good systems check their own work. Guests stop asking what happened and start noticing what happens now. Check-in is crisp. Names are spelled back. Badges are read out before they are handed over. The intercom script drops labels and asks for help the way a system should. Please send a supervisor to the desk. Assistance required. Security keeps presence at the edge, not the center. The rope line opens when the policy says it should, not when a feeling says it might. One evening, a woman approaches the stand, reads the excerpt, scans the QR, and tells the concierge she felt safer hearing the policy than she would have hearing a promise. He smiles and nods toward the ledger where drills are logged. Proof beats volume, he says, and writes down the time of the next drill. The planner sends a quiet thank you to the CEO with a link to a short message guests have been receiving after checkout. Equal service standards enforced during your visit. If you noticed a barrier, report it here. The report form includes a photo field. A handful arrive each week. Most are compliments about smooth check-in. One flags a confusing sign near the ballroom entrance. The manager removes the sign in an hour and posts a photo to the portal ticket. Receipts, not rumors. In a meeting that does not trend, the CEO speaks to the leadership team about what the lobby taught the building. Policies protect people when people protect policies. If a rule can be weaponized, redesign the rule. If a tag can become a wall, remove the tag or require 2 keys to use it. If a process depends on a single pair of hands, build a second pair into the flow. She asks for this to be printed as a one-page and taped to the inside of every checkpoint cupboard. It is not pretty. It is available. When the quarter closes, the analytics chart shows fewer amber marks and more blue ticks. Not zero. Zero would be a lie. Enough to read improvement, not luck. The standards ambassador trains a new hire without the old myths about gut feel. The manager carries a folded SOP in his pocket like a tool, not a prop. The contractor leads 3 agents to the civil rights lab and counts that shift as an investment rather than a loss. The lobby looks the same as it did on the night it broke and reset. Glass, wood, the faint line of a rope, but the sound is different. Fewer intercom blurts, more names read carefully, fewer labels, more requests for help made on time. The CEO stops by with a coffee and a glance, nothing to correct, only a habit to witness. She nods to the desk and leaves the same sentence she left on the first night when the room needed a center. I am here for standards. Then she lets the place run, knowing that design, not drama, is what keeps a door open the right way.